Saturday, July the 16th, and the Ultimate Street Bike Series enters round 5 at Santipod Raceway, Bedfordshire. Conditions were far from perfect, but still over 250 bikes had been scrutineered, and the challenge was on to find the quickest over the quad quarter of a mile. With Suzuki's domination so far, it was good to see Chris Easter getting everything together and running a string of 9-second passes through the weekend. Supporting him on yet another Kawasaki was Chris Hall. His ZX 1100, slightly larger in cc and running nitrous injection, but he was able to post a best of 9.81 seconds at 148 miles per hour. The Dymo twins, Bill Hunter and Martin Peck, both ran 9s on a strip that wasn't helping any of the big horsepower runners in their efforts to run quickly. One man trying to run quickly but ending up with a wrecked gearbox for his trouble was Ken Taylor on his GSX 1260. Also to end up in the back of the van, sadly, was John McKean's Suzuki, his supercharger giving its last blow of the day. A brief interlude from bikes to bring you the hottest thing on 4 wheels. This time out was purely a shakedown pass, or to put it in simple terms, running in. A Sierra to watch out for away from the traffic lights. Then yet another first for the Ultimate Street Bike and indeed drag racing. Steve Burns on his Turbo 1100E was going to relay our first on-board camera pictures. So here we go, with the sensation of riding a quarter of a mile in under 10 seconds with Steve at the controls. All of Steve's other passes went as smoothly. This run, Steve allowed the opposition to disappear, then setting off in a hard pursuit went a little too hard and almost ended up on his back. When the camera was transferred to John Boy Messenger's 1100E road bike, I stress road bike, he set out to improve on Steve's wheelie, risking a lane swap, a tangle with the Armco barrier, but all was in vain. For John had accidentally switched off the recorder when he started the wheelie. The latest 1100E to chase a 9-second pass was that of Andy Tyskovich. Charging strongly, his best pass was a 10.37 at 130 miles per hour. Harry Barlow was again looking like the man to catch in the 2-stroke twin category, with consistent low 11-second passes. Was he going to be caught? Gary Overland on his GSXR 1100 was running consistently with a string of 11.2 second runs. Running as consistently as Gary, but nearly a whole second quicker, was Dean Williamson on his GSXR 1100, sounding very crisp over the quarter. Completing a hat-trick of the same sort of bike was Brian Allen Ross on his standard model, running just outside the 10-second bracket. Crowd entertainment at its slowest were these two on their C70s. By half distance, the cameraman and half the crowd were asleep. Awakened by the next pairing of Chris Ensor and Ron Russell, the crowd saw both dip near the 9-second bracket in a close run race. A welcome return for Dave Ennis on his Z1B Kawasaki after his Long Marston accident. But despite the setback, Dave ran straight into the 10s. Katana-mounted Stephen Sykes ran well during the weekend, his best run a 10.69 at 127 miles per hour. With turbochargers on their Katanas, Ian Toms ran a best of 10.11 at 143, and Mick Noble on his 1168 version ran a string of low 10-second passes, the best being this one at 10.27 at 135 miles per hour. Fastest man for most of Saturday with this run against Steve Burns was Chris Easter. We caught up with Chris and asked what makes last year's 11-second machines this year's 9-second machines.
Right, for this year I wanted to put Kawasaki up among the Suzuki's, try and break the Suzuki stranglehold, so went across to NCK Racing and had a bike board out to 1260 cc's had Mr. Turbo kit bolted on and a single stage nitrous oxide injection kit. It all seems to be working well now, and I'm pretty pleased with it. It's not done too bad.
Jimmy Dunn on an ESD Suzuki Turbo was showing old form again, with this charge dipping into the tens. Unfortunately, there was no terminal speed for this one, but Jimmy was flying. Mark Smythe on a GSX 1135 EF covered the Santa Pod strip a staggering 22 times, doing his bit to boost the run total for the weekend to 2,900 runs. From this total, 9 riders made runs in the 9s. We spoke to 3 of them and asked them what makes a 9-second machine. Chris Hall.
Last year I had the engine really well sorted out. It was making awfully large amounts of horsepower, but I just couldn't break into the 9s at all. The only thing I was breaking was gearboxes. However, this year I've got a super strong, super secret American gearbox, which has really solved my problems. It's running 9s easily now.
Owen Lewis.
Right, first of all, I think I'd like to apologise for the state of the bike. It's a bit of a mess, but it does get ridden to all the meetings. This year I've done all the rounds so far, including the trip over to Ireland and the Isle of Man. Had a great time in Ireland. The strip was really grippy. I managed to pull 9.8 and a 9.9. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to match those times in England yet this year. I've managed a 10.0 at Long Marsden. I'd like to thank Dave and Clive from Motor Armour back home in Jersey, who sponsor me, and also Richard at TTS, who built the motor in the first place. All in all, I'm having a really good time this season, and I'm enjoying myself.
Tony Arnold.
The winter of this year, after struggling with the power back end of the year, of last year, we decided with Richard Albans at TTS that we'd build this, and he helped me a lot with the setting up of it. Basically, for drag racing and the ultimate street bike, you need a chassis that's long and low to get the best out of your engines. And if you have a good chassis, you can do away with a lot of excess power that a lot of the turbos have, because you basically through a road tyre, you can't use it. What we've used is a longer, lower Katana chassis, wider rear wheel, and basically got it as long and as low as practical with a street tyre. And first time out at Long Marsden, we were consistent 9.7s, which, to be honest, it's chuffed me to bits. And it's proved that you can do it on a really low budget as well, as long as you get good sound advice to start off with.
In the 4-stroke twins, Graham Wolf's Formula 1 Ducati just took the honours from Odgie's Triumph and Jim Clayton's yellow 750 SS2. Time for just a couple more passes, then it's eliminator time. With the bump spot number 16 being an incredible 10.31, the action was going to be fast, with John Messenger and Chris Easter among the top stars out in the preliminaries. First quarter-final saw Steve Burns against Chris Hall. Steve chose the right-hand lane and led from the lights. In the second quarter-final, Martin Peck, again in the right-hand lane, got the drop and made the running from Brian Emery. Next pairing were Chris Richards and Tony Arnold. From the left-hand lane, this time Tony Arnold stormed to the lowest ET of the weekend, 9.61 at 145 miles per hour. And finally, Bill Hunter and Tracy Martin. With Bill staging late, Tracy went to get the jump and red lit. In the semis, Martin Peck chose right-hand lane and ran brilliantly to beat Steve Burns to the line. In the second semi, Bill Hunter again staged late, Tony Arnold red lighting this time, So the final was to be Martin Peck and Bill Hunter. Both from the Dymo stable. Would we see Russ Denton service both lanes? Having got to the final, Bill Hunter made no mistakes, and with a 9.67 pass took the win. With a late run, Brian Emery equalled Tony Arnold's earlier run of 9.61 to tie for first place. Third was Steve Burns, and fourth on his Kawasaki, Chris Easton.